G'day friends and fans, welcome to Dave Talks Off Ukraine War Update for the 9th of February 2025. I'm your host, the author David Applegate. Now, of course, Russia has attacked and once again crippled the port of Odessa. Ferocious strikes. Zelensky, of course, is begging Russia for a private meeting. He's done this before. We'll get to the rest of the details later. Right now, looking at the map, we have Ukrainian attacks on Russia, and Zelensky claims, but they're legitimate military targets. And as soon as Russia retaliates, Ukraine goes, they're not, stop attacking our infrastructure. It's like, I mean, you know, Zelensky, you got to realize by now, Russia is not listening to you. I mean, all you do, I know why he whines, because there's people out there who want a pity party and they need a pathetic dog to cry over. And instead of, going to an old folks home and to help the elderly or working at a disabled shelter, they want to have a pity party over Ukraine. Particularly the Upper East Side of New York, who funds this war. Oh, well, London Stand too. There's plenty of crooks to go around, right? BlackRock is not exclusively Jewish. They got Chinese, Danish, Finnish, Polish, Saudi, and lots of Arab money, I tell you. So they're willing to they whore themselves out, and they just justify by saying we're just doing the best for our shareholders. Now, as we go around the map, yesterday the Russians opened up a new front on Sumy, surprise attack. That really hasn't gone anywhere. Same with most of these attacks, they haven't gone anywhere. Though, apparently, Ukraine's had not one but two counterattacks in the last 24 hours that have been successful. But remember, that's 2 out of, 218 battles? Wow, that's not a record you want to be proud of. Yet they are, for some reason. I guess it's because all the liberals out there cheer them on and only look at the small victories. They go, oh, but small victories add up. Yeah. In World War II, Germans won the majority of battles. They lost the battles that count, though. And ended up doing huge retreats as a result. Now, here we have Russia slowly closing the gap here, keeping the Ukrainians tied down here, leisurely capturing a village here, unconfirmed at this time, though Ukraine often waits weeks to see if a Ukrainian counteroffensive kicks them out so they can go, look, the Russians attacked and we kicked them out, But, yeah, again, it's all about PR, right? It's about appearances and not reality. Now, Russia's advanced again in the Lyman area. And as you can see, they are clearly now in a position on Lyman, not just in the south, now in the north, getting ready for, they're in artillery range, pushing forward, right? Pushing out here, closing the gap here. They've pushed out here in a few places, but not gone far or fast. And pretty static here, with some advances south of Chavez Yar. Now, this is still contested territory. This is almost under complete Russian control. This is about half. The Russians are on the outskirts. The Russians are only just on the outskirts and on the outskirts. A lot of these battles are skirmishes with no you know how many battle reports there are from Russia on Telegram? They're putting out almost every hour updates, and they're not often, they're often just a few statements in English, right? So a lot of them are repeats, right? So it's very... You'd spend probably all day reading battle reports and get no different from... how long was this battle for? They don't say. How far did they advance? They don't say. And a lot of the time, some of the battlefield reports, they have... they're from the same positions over and over again. So there are clear indications that a lot of areas on the battlefield are dug in, and are only dug in there to draw the Ukrainians to them, right? If the Ukrainians didn't engage them, right, there would be, and the vast majority of the battlefield, you can see, they haven't, right? But where most of these engagements, however, are initiated by Russia, firing a few shots of artillery, sporadic gunfire at the Ukrainian trenches, couple of drones, and they call it a day. You know, if they were in the American Army or Marines, they would be called Boy Scouts. Okay, they are not. But given the caution that Russia must take, considering the geopolitics, right, that as long as Europe really doesn't care about Ukraine, Russia is in a good mood not to stir the pot too dramatically. Yet so many people forget that it's not Europe Russia really is afraid of. They know they could fight Europe. They can't fight the United States and Europe, nor do they believe they can fight the United States. The thing they fear is abandonment by China, and they are seeing that in real time. They fear, right? There's the only reason, right? China is Russia's biggest enemy, right? That people who don't know Russian history don't know, and they probably don't care that China has a long, fantastic history, unfortunately marred by years of no peace, right? You go back, right? The majority of Chinese history is warfare, like Europe. But unlike Europe, the last 1,600 years of China has been nothing but civil wars, right? China hasn't been expansive, not because they haven't wanted to, it's because they could not, right? Their armies were too busy keeping the peace, whether it was the Hows, the Boxers, the Western provinces, the Mongolians, right? They took Tibet because Tibet was the launching pad for many, right, invasions into China, right? It's where the commies hid out. They didn't want anybody to be able to go to Tibet and raise an army to invade China, because because it makes a great operational airfield to strike all of China. And India's failures to stand up for its friend and ally, who stood by them throughout history. Although, this is the problem, isn't it? Right? Tibet was once a rival to India, so they let it get invaded. They didn't expect the Chinese to win. They thought, the Chinese army's so small now. They're weaker to you. Yeah, but so was Tibet's. It's about comparisons. And then India decided that, no, we'll pick trade over politics, which is political anyway. So, understand, right? We're seeing horse trading over Ukraine on a daily basis, where Ukraine is constantly trying to bully East Europe to unite against Russia on the threat of Russia, and most of Eastern Europe is saying, yes, let's get them, but there's no money in it for them, right? It's only for the prestige of Ukraine. So they turn around and say, here, here's some weapons, and go, yeah, come back when you're going to offer us. And eventually, the Polish people, they're getting sick of the giveaways. They're sick of one. They're sick of each part. They're sick of all the political parties, that there's no real opposition. But for now, because the Polish economy is so good, they're very forgiving. People seem to be very forgiving when their bellies are full. But good times don't last, particularly when you keep giving away so much money to someone who can never repay it. And that is the looming threat. Right? It's not the collapse today if the Russians win in Ukraine. No, they're delaying this war because of the collapse that will come when it ends. Because there's no more excuses. You cannot dig up what you do not have, and even if you did have it, digging it up would immediately lose all value. Many speculators believe that they deliberately wanted to, they created a war of ethnic cleansing in Ukraine. Right? That's Obama's legacy. And now they want to cover it up because Mr. Peace Prize, we need to paint him as the best president ever. So they're going to ignore Afghanistan. They're going to ignore as much as they can and create a mess for Donald Trump. People are dying simply because some Americans, some Europeans want their precious Obama to be the best president ever, so that everybody would worship the liberal establishment and think there's nothing wrong, it's only a little debt. It is not a little debt. It is theft of your grandchildren's legacy, because they inherit the debt. Debt means they don't have anything to spend on themselves. It means all their taxes don't go to services they need. It goes to some greedy bank to pay pensions to a bunch of boomers who stole the money, because they lived extravagantly and excessively on the government dime. Yes, you could say debt expanded the US economy, but when you expand the debt greater than that economy, that's a failure by any measure. And yes, in part, this war is to lash out at Russia for leaving the establishment, right? Now, these are a lot of attacks, very deliberate. Obviously, the Ukrainians were building up another force to try for, yet again, another offensive. Now, in part, they managed to kick one off, but it's a failure. It only halted the Russian advance. And why? What did it get you? A day? 2 days? Maybe a week? But again, it's all cope and seed, right? It's all about protecting their precious Obamas, who keep telling us to not buy from white businesses. Okay, we won't buy Netflix. Oh, wait, aren't you on Netflix? Well, that doubles the reason not to buy Netflix, doesn't it? Alright, so key events, yet again full of shit. Russian forces attacked several facilities. Naftogaz is going, why me? Why me? Go kill my enemies. I mean, my business partners, my competitors. Now, Russia's claimed the couple of settlements, yet to be verified. Again, Ukraine often does this to delay breaking the bad news to their public, to try and break the cushion the blow by saying, oh yes, weeks ago, Russia, But Ukrainians aren't stupid, right? They know the country is slowly losing, but they've lost interest in their own war, right? But unfortunately, with the way Ukraine is so controlled by Zelensky and his pathetic horde of Eurocrat sock puppets. But Ukraine says, attacking Russia's infrastructure is a legitimate target because they source of funds for the production of weapons. Well, isn't that the same for Ukraine? Zelensky's just a big hypocrite. But isn't that every politician these days? Is that not the only... If it wasn't for double standards, Liberals would have none. None, I tell you. Like how they attack ICE. Because no matter how much you tell them that Obama was the biggest deporter-in-chief, Obama the biggest warmonger-in-chief, they worship the ground that pathetic slime-bag lizard man walks on. Because there's nothing that will break them out of their fugue state. Liberals are mesmerised by the CBS, NBC, CNN conglomerate, right? The triad of Satanism, right? They're so enamoured, they huff their own farts and say, it's rose oil, I tell you. But ceasefire talks have been, yet again, sabotaged by the United Kingdom and France, constantly talking about sending troops, and the US has to stop. The US has to keep telling them to shut the fuck up, and Zelensky that you're not getting troops, foreign troops, for your counterattack or whatever you want to. Russia says you put troops there, we'll blow them up, right? Because Zelensky can't be trusted, right? Remember, he made promises that he never kept. He made promises in 2019, 2020, 2022, 2023, 2024, 2025, over and over again. He has broken his word. Now, India has doubled down, right? They've delayed delivery of their purchases, but they made purchases. Now, apparently, this was a move by New Delhi until they get a trade pact with Washington. The oil they bought is obviously never intended for Indian refiners, right? Indian Oil and Bharat bought this petroleum, right? Then they said, no, we're not going to take delivery. So they paid for it, haven't taken delivery. Meanwhile, trains full of Russian oil are headed to China. And you say, well, didn't China purchase Russian oil anyway? Well, this is the same oil, right? There's Russian trains going to China with Indian oil to Russian, to Russian Indian partners, right, in China, who are then going to sell it to third parties. I.e., this is one big scheme, I suppose, to appear that India is complying with Washington's demands, when in reality India had no need for this oil. But it's a let's see, what would you call it? Definitely war profiteering. Yes, this is a war profiting opportunities to sell oil, right? Not marked as Russian, but marked as Indian oil, with a lot of people not understanding that Indian oil is a refiner, right? And it's not coming from Indian oil. It's coming on Chinese ships from China. Sorry, it's been shipped from China by third parties, right, to Europe. A lot of it also is being laundered through that's what they do, right? They swap ships. They get a ship half full of Venezuelan oil, top it up with Russian oil, and then deviate it to China and say, oh, it's Venezuelan. But yeah, the Russians move around oil, China moves around oil, everybody's moving around oil. And all they're doing is driving up the price of oil, right, to virtue signal that they're complying with, all to deceive the public that the almighty bureaucrats are doing something, you know? It's all about appearances, not productivity. Now, Czech has called out the British yet again. He claims that peace talks was within reach in 2022 until British interference. And that this was confirmed by his interview with the Ukrainian delegation. Right? He wants the EU to pull out. Right? He wants to expose, right, the EU, the whole corrupt establishment within the EU, right? Because Czechoslovakia and other countries, right, have been drained of billions of dollars by Europe for a war that is never, right, never in the interests of the people who are buying it. There's no benefit for a war for Czechoslovakia. They're not fighting for their freedom, right? If Russia takes Donbass, it does not affect Czechoslovakia. Czechoslovakia was getting cheap oil, like so many Eastern European countries. They said they don't like Russia, but they're willing to buy their oil as long as the Russians stay on the Russian side of the border, right? So that's the justification of the greater left, to saying, well, Russia invaded Ukraine, ignoring the previous 10 years, right? Nobody's drawing attention to that war, right? They're just saying, move on, that war is over. No, it's not. It's the whole reason we have a war in Ukraine, is Obama's war of ethnic cleansing. Now, Zelensky has pleaded with Putin for a private meeting, and this is to mislead Ukrainians, because Ukrainians probably forgotten how many times Zelensky's done this before. He has publicly begged for meetings in the past, and as soon as Moscow says, okay, we guarantee your security, bring American observers, you can go, they can pick you up, bring you back home, no worries. Then he turns around and says, nope, I do not feel safe, I cannot trust you, I want a meeting in Kiev. Yeah. They want to draw out Putin so they could... Remember when they shut down that transport, thinking they killed Putin? Every time, right? This is one big... They don't care. There's no repercussions, right? They don't care, because the liberal establishment will never vote against them. But they're so convinced that their glorious Zelensky will deliver them everything in the end. But Hungary's foreign minister says European officials are trying to... everybody knows they hate Trump, right? Starmer's on the rocks because of his... He claims he never met Epstein. Well, why have you got so many friends who have? And they're all gay. What an interesting collection of friends you have. What an amazing coincidence, right? Almost everybody Starmer knows is gay. It's almost as if the establishment has nepotism fever. And of course, Macron, we got him. You know, this is all such... look at the hand-wringing. The noticing will continue. Of course, Macron's got the bigger nose. He's got a bigger nose than both of them. But, the Western head of states treats Zelensky as if he's their, the special child they have to take care of. They protect him from all the consequences of his actions, right? That they're caregivers, right? They cannot leave Zelensky alone for a minute, right? Though we all know that Zelensky wants to kill the peace deal, right? Tried to lure the Russians into private meetings without the US president. He's offered them deals if they withdraw. He's offered deals if they get rid of Putin. That, you know, we'll take the sanctions off Russia. The moment as if they care about Ukraine's sanctions. But what they do care about is the fact that Ukraine is a terrorist state, training terrorists to murder Russians. Eventually, this will come back to haunt them. All right? Russia will systematically destroy Ukraine. If you do not understand the Russian mindset, I'm telling you, Zelensky is in a world of pain right now, and he does not know it. Right? Even if it's not Putin, it'll be someone else. Russia will get its pound of flesh. And they do not care how much the blood will flow anymore, because they no longer like us. We have lost all goodwill with most Russians. This hatred, the boomer hatred of Russians, right? You cannot hate the liberal media enough. You cannot hate boomers enough. I'm not a boomer, right? Most people don't like boomers, right? They are the selfish, greedy narcissists who inherited this amazing world after World War II, right? They never fought in it, and yet they have carry this chip on their shoulder that they too must fight the Nazis. Carry on the fight. Yeah. But they ruined everything for everyone else. Without election, they created the EU and then tried to force their establishment on everybody. Right? Always claiming it's about peace. What peace have they brought? What peace? A legacy of corruption, drugs, debt, soaring cost of living. And all they do is go back to their little nursing homes and say, you owe us for living, for living. You know, you owe us. You have to take care of the workers. You have to give us free health care and everything, free housing. They wasted, they squandered every opportunity. They squandered all the wealth. And now they pump and dump, right? They buy a company, they pump its production, put out big numbers, lure in investors, sell the company, and then the company collapses, right? Europe is in such a mess because of the greedy, stupid establishment and the idiots who won't listen to reasonable people who are trying to save the West. Now, I don't think for a minute, right, that the establishment is not going to give up peace. It's just going to die and go away peacefully. No, they have recruited millennials into their ranks who will become the new boomers, who will squander trillions in wealth for their own gluttony and lust, right? Nothing but self-gratifying, pathetic consumers. Can't build anything to save themselves. But has Ukraine finally gone too far to woo its Western handlers, right? To show that they will be willing to do anything it takes, right? To destroy Russia. Because ultimately, Little Britain wants everybody to be smaller than them so that Britain can feel safe again. It's all about boomers and their bloody safety. Well, actually, it's about carving up countries for profit. Right? People aren't selling their homes desperate for a meal when there's peace and prosperity. They have to destabilize the world over and over again for their own glory and gratification. Now, the majority of Spanish had no idea what was going on in the days of what they call the Spanish glory. But where did all that gold go? They harvested all that gold, right? And then they turned around and bought all those ships to invade, right? To build candle makers and all sorts of icons, right? Cover their women in gold. But we're talking around 5,000 tons of gold over. Where did it all go? Well, it lost value over time, right? Gold is nowhere near as valuable as it used to be. It was the bee's knees. A pound of gold was like a mansion. But that's it, isn't it? Gold runs out. Ships sink. There's too much gold. Everybody's attacking your ships for gold. I mean, this is the same right with Russia. They but the same with the collapse of the Spanish Empire. You're seeing the collapse of other empires as they try to tear down Russia. They're expending their own resources to do it, right? The collapse of the Spanish Empire didn't just collapse Spain. It collapsed multiple countries. Because when Spain was no longer producing lots of gold in South America, Spain wasn't just accumulating that gold, right? They were making lots of gold objects to sell all across Europe, right? But it's just like killing the golden goose, isn't it? You cut it open and you find that Spain has no gold. And of course South America, large, right? Large, and they find out that these large gold, gold is, they're not large gold deposits at all. Big, deep mines to get small quantities. The world is insane right now. It's up to you. If you spread the message, you can build an audience, but then again, the war might be coming to an end. But I hope my efforts have not been for naught. Though I have lost my YouTube channel twice, got it back, right? I will. So does this. I am tempted to abandon Ukraine and just say, fuck it. Not enough people are watching, but there are still, I think, it's not about the support. It's about the lack of respect. All right? The people who keep telling me they want an end to this war do nothing towards that end. But the majority who make it this far, I think, might be worth staying on this war a bit longer. So thank you. And again, I know I'm beating a dead horse, asking for support, but I will anyway, because I do have a few people who joined Patreon, but why is it that Pokemon gets so many people, but I don't? Well, I guess it's because I don't have beautiful tits. But I'm going to ask for your support anyway, and thank you for listening. I appreciate you, and take care.